in 1291, only urged him forward to North Africa once more, in 1314. His love had not grown cold, but burned the brighter. He longed not only for the martyr's crown, but also once more to see his little band of believers in Africa. Animated by these sentiments, he crossed over to Buja, Algeria, on August 14th, and for nearly a whole year labored secretly among a little circle of converts whom, on his previous visits, he had won over to the Christian faith. At length, weary of seclusion and longing for martyrdom, he came forth into the open market and presented himself to the people as the same man whom they had once expelled from their town. It was Elijah showing himself to a mob of Ahabs. Lul stood before them and threatened them with divine wrath if they still persisted in their errors. He pleaded with love, but spoke plainly the whole truth. The consequences can be easily anticipated. Filled with fanatic fury at his boldness and unable to reply to his arguments, the populace seized him and dragged him out of the town. There, by the command, or at least the connivance of the king, he was stoned on the 30th of June, 1315. Sir Raymond Lull was 80 years old when he gave his life for the Muslims of North Africa. Nothing could be further from the American dream of retirement than the way Lull lived out his last days. Dying to make Christ look great. In John chapter 21, verse 19, Jesus told Peter, by what kind of death he was to glorify God. There are different ways of dying, and there are different ways of living just before we die. But for the Christian, all of them, the final living and the dying, are supposed to make God look glorious. All of them are supposed to show that Christ, not this world, is our supreme treasure. So finishing life to the glory of Christ means using whatever strength and eyesight and hearing and mobility and resources we have left to treasure Christ, and in that joy to serve people, that is, to seek to bring them with us into the everlasting enjoyment of Christ. Serving people, and not ourselves, as the overflow of treasuring Christ, makes Christ look great. The fear of not persevering. One of the great obstacles to finishing life to the glory of Christ is the fear that we will not persevere in treasuring Christ and loving people. We just won't make it. We won't be able to say with Paul in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. The reward of final righteousness will come to those who have loved his appearing, that is, who treasure him supremely, and want him to be here. So this treasuring of Christ must be included in and part of the fought fight, and the finished race, and the kept faith. Faith includes treasuring Christ and his appearing. You don't have faith if you don't want Jesus. So one great obstacle to finishing life to the glory of Christ is the fear that we can't maintain this treasuring of Christ. And so we fear that we can't bear the fruit of love that flows from faith. Galatians chapter 5, verse 6, 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. We fear that we're not going to make it. And the main reason that this fear of not persevering in faith and love is an obstacle to finishing life to the glory of Christ is that the two most common ways of overcoming this fear are deadly. Two deadly ways to overcome this fear. There are two opposite ways to ruin your life in trying to overcome this fear. One is to assume that perseverance in faith and love is not necessary for final salvation, and the other is to assume that the perseverance is necessary and then depend on our efforts in some measure to fulfill that necessity and to secure God's favor. Let me show why both these are devastatingly misguided and deadly, and then what is the biblical way of finishing